Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up part 2. I have 5 books that I want to talk to you guys about in this video, so I'm just going to jump right in. So the first book that I have to talk about really briefly is Vita Nostra, and I say really briefly because I'm actually going to do a full video on this book because I have a lot of feelings about it. Like a lot of people who watch BookTube, I found out about this book because of Matthew Sciarappa, and I really enjoyed this book a lot. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It is a really fantastic magical school story, but it takes it to another level. The way that I summed it up in my Goodreads review was that this is like Harry Potter if Harry Potter was written by Kafka. Now that's like a super simplification, obviously. So I do want to talk about this book more, but just know that like overall I really enjoyed it. And if you are someone who enjoys magical school stories, especially ones that are more adult and have like a lot of darker themes to them and deeper ideas to them, then this is definitely one you should have on your radar. But again, I'm going to do a full review on this one next week, so you guys can look forward to that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one a lot. Next up, I have The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay, and this is a book that I actually listened to on audio. The audiobook of this is available on Hoopla for anyone who is interested, and I actually really loved it on audio. The narrator for this is really fantastic, so if you are interested in this book, I highly recommend the audiobook. This story takes place in India, and you are following this character named Shalini, who is in her like 20s when her mother passes away, and the story sort of flashes back and forth in time between like present day of her dealing with her grief and whatnot, and then also like flashing back in time, and you get to see stories about her childhood and about her mother growing up and even like leading up to their death and her death and things like that. But after her mother passes away, Shalini is kind of aimless for a while, and she decides that she is going to head to Kashmir because when she was younger there was this man who used to sell clothes, and he was from Kashmir, and he was basically the only person that she knew of that was actually like her mother's friend. But then one day he kind of just like disappeared. But now she decides that she is going to travel to Kashmir and try to find him. She remembers the village that he has mentioned when he used to visit. So she decides she's going to go there and, you know, try to find him. While she's there, she ends up staying with this family and ends up getting like really involved in the lives of this family and within this village and things like that. And things sort of like expand from there. This is one of those like literary fiction books where the plot is very much secondary to character development and writing and things like that. So like giving a plot summary isn't super easy because a lot happens in the story, but it also isn't really about what happens in the story. This is a book about grief, which is always a thing that I really appreciate. This is also a book that's about privilege, which is also a thing that I really appreciate. Shalini comes from a major city. She's from Bangalore, which is in southern India, and she has a lot of privilege. She's been sheltered from a lot of things. And so when she goes to Kashmir, which is a country that deals with a lot of conflict, and specifically in the village that she goes to, there is a significant amount of conflict. Her eyes are sort of open to other things that are happening in the world, other experiences that other people are happening. So yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed listening to this on audio. I think this is a book that if I had read the physical form of it, I probably would have DNF'd it because Shalini is a super irritating character at times. Like she's so naive sometimes that it's almost infuriating, but also that's kind of the point. But again, the audiobook narration is so well done that I was able to, you know, deal with that significantly better. The writing in here is really beautiful in a way that having it told to you is like a really amazing experience. So I think that also helps a lot. I think I gave this like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's like a 3-star story with a 5-star narration, but I really enjoyed the exploration of things like grief and privilege and things like that. This is a book filled with unlikable characters and characters who make poor decisions and characters you want to yell at and things like that. Like these are morally gray, complicated characters, which is something that I always really enjoy seeing in books. So if you are looking for a good literary fiction book that deals with like morally gray characters that doesn't have a lot of plot but has really beautiful writing and complicated characters, The Far Field might be one for you. All right, next up I have Harmless Like You by Rowan Hisayo Buchanan. This is another one that is literary fiction with complicated characters that cause complicated feelings in me. In this story, you are following two storylines. One of them, you are following this character named Yuki, who is of Japanese descent. She lives in New York City. You're following her as she is like in high school, and her parents decide that they are going to move back to Japan, but she's able to convince her parents to let her stay in the United States. And you are just like following her as she grows up and she decides to become an artist and things like that. And then the other storyline you are following is in more present day. The story of Yuki takes place in like the 1970s. And then there's a present day storyline where you are following this character named Jay, who is actually Yuki's son, who she abandoned when he was a baby. And Jay's father recently passed away and has left in his will the house that they grew up in, that Jay grew up in, to Yuki. And so he has to fly to, I believe, Germany, which is where she's currently living, in order to hand over the deed to the home and things like that, and to get her to like either sign off on it or have her sell it or whatever she wants to do with it. But he sort of travels there without saying that it's him that's traveling there. Like he sort of doesn't say anything and she just assumes it's a lawyer. And so you're sort of just following like those two storylines. So yeah, like I said, this is a book that I had really complicated feelings about. I loved following the Yuki storyline, like the 1970s storyline, watching this girl grow up and figure out what she's doing and have like really conflicting emotions about so many different things was really, really fantastic for me. Jay is a terrible character in my opinion. Like he would be a terrible person. He's married and it's like super confusing whether or not he actually likes or loves his wife. They recently had a child who he seems very ambivalent with, and he like the way his point of view is provided, it's like so off-putting to me that I was not enjoying this book at all when it was from his point of view. But luckily, like his point of view doesn't take up a significant portion of the book. But again, I really enjoyed everything from Yuki's storyline, and that's really what kept me going. It was nice to see sort of Jay when he finally meets Yuki and things like that. And then I started enjoying it more, but sort of everything leading up to that point, like there's a lot of time spent with just Jay that I was not into. So I think I also gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars specifically for that reason. It's really, really beautifully written, but it is one of those, again, literary fiction sort of navel gazing, meandering plot sort of story. So you sort of have to know that going into it. So if you're into something that is a slightly slower burn, I do recommend this one. I think there's a lot done with Yuki's storyline to talk about what it was like growing up in the 60s and 70s and having these ambitious dreams and sort of the corruption of that and dealing with real life and all of those different things. I think all of that was handled really well. This is like one of those books that's like borderline pretentious, which I'm kind of okay with sometimes. You are also into borderline pretentious books. And you can pick up Harmless Like You. All right, my next two books are basically on the opposite end of the spectrum. First one is August Snow by Stephen Mac Jones. This is the first book in a mystery series. So this is like a really fun, action-packed book. If you are looking for a crime book that is just like all action, this is for you. In this story, you are following this character named August Snow, who is a former police officer for the Detroit Police Department, and he basically ends up telling on his corrupt department and mayor and like takes down a significant portion of the department. He becomes a pariah for the police department. He also got like a $12 million payout for being someone who told on them. And so since he becomes a pariah, he leaves Detroit, travels the world for a little bit, but then ends up going back to Detroit and moving back to his hometown. And when he moves back, he gets contacted by this woman named Eleanor Paget, who he is like an acquaintance with. She asks him to look into some suspicious things that are happening at the bank that she owns, and he turns it down because he says he's no longer a police officer, he's not a private detective, he doesn't have a detective's license, and he has no real interest in following that path anymore. But then the next day, Eleanor Paget ends up dead. It's being ruled as a suicide, but August Snow doesn't believe that it actually was a suicide, so he starts looking into it, and he gets himself in quite a bit of a mess. This book I've seen described as like a Raymond Chandler novel with a bit of a Walter Mosley, Easy Rawlins feel to it, which I think is kind of accurate. There's a lot of things about this book that I really enjoyed. This book takes place in Detroit, and Detroit is a major part of this story. The author is also from the Detroit area, so you can tell how much he loves the city by how much the main character loves the city and talks about the city and things like that. So if you are someone who enjoys books that like really ground you in a place, this is a good one for that. Again, like I said, it's basically all action and all plot. So if you are in the mood for something like that, then this is a really great one. Like, it really feels like you're watching or reading like an action movie, like a popcorn flick or something like that. So don't go into this book expecting like super deep character development or anything like that, but there is some slight character development that happens in this story. And the main character in this story is half black, half Mexican. There is like talk about race in Detroit and the way the lines are, you know, set up and things like that, and the conflicts that occur between different races and things like that. So he doesn't like shy away from some deeper racial topics, but again, it's mostly like an action popcorn flick. So again, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a lot of fun. I have the second book as well, which just came out in January, so I'm definitely going to be picking that one up. There's a lot of really fun characters in here that I'm excited to continue on with. I feel like a lot of times when I get into a mystery series, a lot of times what makes or breaks it for me is how the side characters are portrayed and written. If I enjoy the side characters, then I usually am really excited to continue on with the series, and this one has a lot of really fun side characters as well. So yeah, August Snow, I really liked it. I recommend it if you want a fast-paced, action-packed mystery book. Oh, but I will say the one major flaw that I had with this is that like August Snow can be really annoying at times because he has so much pride and so much ego that you kind of want to kick him, but also all of the other characters feel that way about him too, so you know you're not crazy when you're feeling that way. Everyone else kind of justifies it. All right, and the final book I have to talk about is Dragon Pearl by Yoon Ha Lee. Now, full disclosure, Disney Presents sent me this book and sponsored my most anticipated science fiction and fantasy video that I posted last week, but they did not like pay me to review this book or anything like that. But you know, I just want to say that so it's clear. So this is a new middle grade story from Yoon Ha Lee. He wrote the science fiction book Nine Fox Gambit, as well as its sequels that I can never remember the names of. And this is, again, like I said, a new middle grade novel from him. This was a really fun book. I highly recommend this book if you enjoy middle grade adventure stories, because this is a really fun adventure story. So in this story, you are following this character named Min, who is about 13 years old. She and her family are all fox spirits, but fox spirits are not like highly looked upon. In fact, they're seen as being like very untrustworthy and things like that. Their mother has told the entire family that they all have to disguise themselves as humans. Their story starts off with an officer coming to their house telling them that June, Min's older brother, who is a cadet part of the Space Forces, has basically abandoned the Space Forces, and they believe that he has left to go find the Dragon Pearl, which is this object that holds immense power. However, Min doesn't believe that June would ever do that and thinks that something is up, and so she decides that she is going to run away from home to try and find out what exactly is happening here. So first of all, let's just talk about how amazing this cover is. I legitimately keep looking at it because I am kind of obsessed with it. I think it's one of the most beautiful covers I've seen in a long time. But besides that, this was, like I said, a really fun adventure story. It did take me a little bit to get into the story. I feel like there is like a small side adventure that Min goes on before the story really takes off that, while it's not completely unnecessary because like it does lead to the plot eventually, but it does take a little bit to really get into the meat of the story. But I felt like once I was into the real part of the plot, then I was having a lot of fun with this story. There are, again, a lot of really fun side characters. I didn't really know where the story was going, although I had an inkling, and because it's middle grade, it's like not super twisty, but there were some parts of it that I was surprised by. There's a lot of heart in this story, but overall it's just like a fun adventure story. I believe that this is a first in a series, which makes me really happy because I totally will continue reading more of these books as they come out. This book is also based on like Korean mythology, so if you are interested in stuff like that, then this would be a really great one to pick up. I think that they do a really good job of just sort of like building out this world, even the little bits that you see of it, and just again providing you with fun characters and fun friendships and a fun adventure to go on. So yeah, Dragon Pearl by Yoon Ha Lee. If you enjoy middle grade science fiction, fantasy, adventure stories, then this is definitely one you should have on your radar. It was really fun and cute, and I liked it a lot. So that is everything I have for this video, or at least everything that I have read so far this month. At the end of December, I made sort of like a monthly goal, so that way I basically took my quarterly goals and broke them down into monthly goals. So one of my goals was to read 3 books off of the Book Riot best of 2018 list, and I did that at the first half of the month, so I already took care of that. My other one was to reduce my TBR by 5 books, so that meant if I got books in the mail or anything like that, or bought books, then I would have to read enough to make up for that. I didn't hit 5 though, I hit 4, which I'm actually okay with, because I didn't even know if I was going to hit 4, because I read 6 books off my TBR, but then I received 2 in the mail, which I'm okay with. So yeah, I feel like I did okay for the month of January, although I was hoping I would at least get it down to 60. My goals for February are to read 2 books off of the best of list, and then to just get my TBR number to under 60. So like if I hit like 58, I'll be fine. The reason why I say that is because I'm going to New Orleans next month, and so I know I'm going to be going to bookstores, and so I don't know like how much I'm going to buy when I'm down there, to be completely honest. I'm going to like be relatively under control, but you never know. And then also like I have a bunch of library books checked out that I want to read. I know I'm going to get books in the mail again. So actually my goal is just to get to 60 and like keep it at 60 or less, because I really do think I'm going to probably come out even when it comes to my reading and acquiring next month. I'm being realistic. So yeah, as long as I'm at like 60 or less, I'll be happy. So yeah, that is everything I have for this video. Feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know what your favorite read was in the month of January, or maybe what your least favorite read was in the month of January. I, mix it up a little bit. Although I will say that I am more excited when I hear about books that people loved versus books that people hated. So maybe just mention the one you do love. Or if you have any comments or questions about any of the books that I mentioned here today, if you've read any of them yourself, I'd love to hear your thoughts about them. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.